This is a Fox News alert. North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un has proposed a face-to-face meeting with President Trump about his country's nuclear weapons program. Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. Fox's chief White House correspondent John Roberts has been on this story and he has details at this hour. John?
Well, this is an extraordinary moment in history, Tucker, just for the very fact that we heard from the White House tonight that the President of the United States has agreed to meet with the President of North Korea. I mean, nobody thought that anything like this could ever happen unless it was under the most extraordinary of circumstances. But this is kind of from a beginning level. You know, Kim Jong Un had talks with South Korean officials earlier this week. Those South Korean officials came to the White House today to say that Kim is committed to the denuclearization of the North Korean peninsula, and he held out that olive branch for a meeting with President Trump. President Trump, who has said in the past many times he'd be happy to meet with Kim, agreed. But this is aiming toward the denuclearization of the North Korean peninsula. This is not about freezing North Korea's nuclear program, as has happened so many times in the past, only to watch them cheat. President Trump is making it clear that he wants Kim Jong Un to give up his nuclear program. A statement from the press secretary just a short time ago will pass along to you. President Trump greatly appreciates the nice words of the South Korean delegation and President Moon. He will accept the invitation to meet with Kim Jong Un at a place and time to be determined. We look forward to the denuclearization of North Korea. In the meantime, all sanctions and maximum pressure must remain. The question of where is probably one of the biggest questions right now. I would assume that President Trump is not going to go to Pyongyang in North Korea to meet with Kim Jong Un. I don't expect that Kim Jong Un would come to the United States because he might fear that he'll be thrown in an American jail and never see the light of day ever again. Not that that would happen. So it may be that they choose potentially South Korea right there along the border in Panmunjom, which will be the site of the talks between South Korea's President Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong Un later in May. Or maybe it's a third country, some neutral country somewhere else in the world where everyone can meet. How did we get to this point? The White House is just walking us through that in a conference call right now. But Chung Eui-yong, who is the South Korean National Security Advisor, said in the statement outside the White House here that it was due to President Trump's program of maximum pressure that North Korea came to the table. They said that while Kim is committed to the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, he also understands that joint military exercises between South Korea and the United States must continue. Now, President Trump, as you'll remember, Tucker, came under an extraordinary amount of criticism for his tough-minded approach toward North Korea. A lot of people were saying he wanted to start a war with the North. It would seem that exactly the opposite has happened. Rather than the missiles flying, it looks like there will be talks. And it really is, when you look at everywhere we were up until this point, an extraordinary moment in history. Tucker?
It's astounding. John, was there any mention of the role, if any, that China played in this?
I think that this was very much a behind-the-scenes sort of thing. When you talk about the program of maximum pressure, that wasn't just the United States. It was the United States and a number of other countries, first and foremost among them China. President Trump has pushed Xi Jinping time and time again to get tougher with North Korea, to increase the sanctions, to put the squeeze on North Korean banks, to not allow workers in North Korea North Korean workers in China to send money back to North Korea. We don't know exactly how much China did in this particular case. It seemed like it was limited, but at this moment, it appears like it may have been enough. So we'll see where this goes. Nobody is under any illusions here in the United States that Kim Jong Un, they might think that he's sincere, but nobody thinks that he's not potentially playing fast and loose here. We had John Bolton, the former UN ambassador, on our air the other day saying that he thinks that they're just trying to buy time so that they can complete their nuclear weapons program. Then they've got a very big bargaining chip. But they're looking at this optimistically here at the White House, Tucker, thinking that this may be the opening that the United States has waited for and tried for an awfully long time.
Well, it's unexpected to say the least. John Roberts at the White House, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tucker.
Harry Kazianis is a North Korea expert and director of defense studies at the Center for the National Interest, and he joins us tonight. Harry, I don't know anybody, any of the geniuses running our foreign policy in Washington who predicted anything like this.
Well, I certainly didn't. That's for certain. I actually thought there was a better chance we'd be at nuclear war with North Korea than there'd be peace talks. But there's something we're missing, Tucker. There's a little bit of context. South Korean press about 2 weeks ago came out with some reports that were fascinating. They actually speculated that North Korea was actually on the edge of financial bankruptcy. By October, their foreign exchange reserves are probably going to be exhausted, and their dollar reserves are going to be exhausted.
Yes.
So that means North Korea is essentially bankrupt. You can't build a lot of nuclear weapons and a lot of missiles when you have no money to do it, to pay all the different spies and people to bring those materials back.
Right.
You can't also feed your people that way. So I do think the North Koreans might be trying to buy some time here, but I also think that Kim Jong Un's newfound pragmatism, there might be a bigger reason for it.
So what do you make of this? Kim pledged that North Korea will refrain from any further nuclear or missile tests.
As long as we're talking, that's the other caveat to that point. So I guess as long as that both sides are negotiating and we're trying to figure something out, then they won't test. There's a bigger point to all this. What I would urge President Trump to do, meet with Kim Jong Un, throw the Hail Mary. History shows us sometimes these things can actually happen and work out. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But what this administration cannot do, Tucker, is give him any bribes, give him any economic incentives. The North Koreans have tried that in the past to come to the table. That would be the wrong move, and that would be a mistake.
Huh. So what is the gambit? Continued pressure, I guess, in the words of South Korea?
I think what we need to do is we need to test North Korea's intentions. Maybe they're sincere. Maybe they are willing to come to the negotiating table. Because we have to remember something here. The North Koreans, time is against them. Their economy is a disaster. It's worth something like $14 billion. South Korea's is worth something like $1.2 trillion. Someday the North Korean state will collapse, and I think Kim realizes this. So this may be a historic moment. I never thought I would see this before, probably in decades. So I think Trump has to explore it.
And he may be the one president who would actually do this, who would go meet with the North Korean leader. Is he going to stop on his way in Oslo to get the Nobel Peace Prize?
He should be given the Nobel. If he lands this, if he closes the ultimate deal of a lifetime, you give that man the Nobel Prize. There's no question.
But let's be, I mean, the chances of that are right around zero, I think.
There may be a
of getting the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, yeah,
they gave it to Obama for getting elected, so I doubt
didn't do anything.
Right, I'm aware.
Yeah. So you know what? Trump's got to explore that.
So what happens? I mean, just to game this out a little bit, and it's obviously this is speculative, but the end game, of course, is reunification. The Korea is becoming one country again. What would that mean for everyone else?
It means a lot of good. It means a lot of bad. The bad is the toughest part. The cost to reunify North Korea with South Korea is probably something like $10 trillion. You're talking about having to build roads, bridges, take care of their people. The economics of that would be totally insane. Plus, you would have China and Japan very nervous about what a strong Korea would mean for the region. Just thinking that through is just astronomical.
Huh. And China would not be in favor, and Japan would not be in favor.
I don't think Japan, I think you could convince them in the long term. China, I think it would be one of their biggest fears.
Well, we're thinking ahead. But for the moment, this is really, it's amazing.
It's history
and again, as usual, no one in D.C. predicted it. Harry, great to see you.
Thanks, Tucker.